My wife disappeared for a whole week and came back laughing as if she'd just returned from a vacation. She stood in front of me in the living room, slipping off her shoes with that kind of casualness that only comes from deep arrogance. Her purse dropped onto the sofa. The afternoon sun streamed through the window and caught her face, lighting up that smile that used to disarm me. "I just needed some time away from you, Eli," Naomi said, without even looking me in the eye. She turned and looked at me as if I were a stranger. "You should be grateful I came back." Grateful. The word hung in the air between us. I took a deep breath, the deepest I'd taken in a long time. I felt the oxygen fill my lungs, and my heart beat with a strange calm that shouldn't exist in that moment. "I'm glad you enjoyed it," I said. My voice was serene, almost gentle. "Because now you'll have all the time in the world." I walked over to the credenza and opened the top drawer. I had kept the black envelope there all week, waiting for this exact moment. I turned back to her and held it out. Naomi looked at it like it was poison. "What is this?" she asked. "Open it." She took it with trembling hands, broke the seal, and pulled out the papers. The first was a photograph. I watched her face drain of color. Then came another document, and another. Her eyes darted from one page to the next, faster and faster. The color left her face completely. I watched her turn red, then pale, then red again, like a badly ripening tomato. Where did you get this?" Her superior tone was gone, replaced by a broken whisper. I sat down in the armchair across from her and crossed my legs. I was wearing my white button-down shirt, the one she used to say made me look distinguished. "You had a whole week to yourself, Naomi. I used that time, too. There are decisions you make in a second. Others mature over years of silence, of swallowing your words, of pretending you don't see what's right in front of your eyes. Mine matured in exactly 7 days. 7 days in which my wife disappeared without a trace, without a call, without an explanation. And when she came back, she acted as if nothing happened. As if I was so much of an idiot that I didn't even deserve a well-crafted lie. "Do you want to know what I did while you were enjoying your freedom?" I asked. She didn't answer. She was paralyzed, the papers shaking in her hands. I could see her trying to process what she was seeing, her brain refusing to accept reality. I hired a private investigator, a good man, very professional. He got me everything I needed in less than 3 days. I paused, letting the silence settle between us like an unwelcome guest. "The photos with him, the hotel receipts you paid for with our joint account, the messages, all the messages, Naomi, going back over 2 years." I watched her knees give out. She collapsed onto the sofa, still holding those papers as if they were her death sentence. And in a way, they were. "Eli, I can explain." "No." I held up a hand. My voice was still soft, almost gentle. That's what surprised me most about myself in that moment. No shouting, no tears, just a calm that came from having cried all the tears possible in private. "I don't want explanations. Not anymore." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, life continued. Neighbors were watering their lawns. Kids were playing in the street. Everything was so normal, so oblivious to the earthquake happening inside these 4 walls. "Do you know what hurts the most, Naomi?" I asked, without turning around. I heard a sob behind me, but I didn't look back. "No, it's not the betrayal itself. I'm a 63-year-old man. I've seen enough of the world to know people are capable of anything." My reflection in the glass shows a tired man with salt and pepper hair at his temples, and lines telling stories of hard work. What hurts is that you treated me like an idiot, as if I were too old, too blind to even notice. The sob turned into weeping, but I still didn't turn around. 32 years, Naomi. 32 years together. I worked 12 hours a day for half my life to give you the house you wanted, the trips you dreamed of, the security I promised the day we got married. My voice cracked slightly, but I recovered quickly. And while I was working, while I was building our future, you were building another life with another man, with my money. Eli, please. There are more papers in that envelope. I finally turned toward her. Bank statements, showing the transfers you made to his account. $20,000 in total. Money from our savings. From the fund we were going to use for our retirement. I let those words sink like stones in deep water. Do you know how many hours of overtime I worked to put together that $20,000? She was openly crying now, makeup streaking down her cheeks in black lines. She looked small, broken. A part of me, the part that still remembered the man I was, wanted to go over and comfort her, but that part was buried under layers of pain and betrayal. There are legal documents in theirs too, divorce papers. They're already prepared. All they need is your signature. I walked slowly toward the front door. Our attorney, Julian Carter, handled everything. The house stays in my name, as it should, since I paid for it completely. The joint accounts are closed. Your name was removed from all of them last Tuesday. You can't do this, she said. Her voice was barely a thread. I already did. I opened the door. The fresh evening air came in like a blessing. You have until Sunday to collect your things. I've hired a lawyer who will be present during the entire process. You can only take what is yours, nothing more. Naomi stood up with difficulty. Her legs were trembling. Eli, can we talk about this? It was a mistake. I can change. We can go to marriage counseling. Marriage counseling. The question came out as a bitter, unrecognizable laugh. Naomi, you cheated on me for 2 years. You spent our savings on another man, and 3 hours ago, you walked into this house laughing, telling me I should be grateful you came back. I shook my head. There's no counseling that fixes that. There are no words that undo what you did. She took a step toward me, her hands outstretched, pleading. Please don't leave me like this. I have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before. My voice sounded harder now. Before every lie, before every night you spent in his arms, before every dollar you stole from our account. It's not stealing. That money was mine too. It was ours, I corrected her calmly. But you decided it was yours to give away to him. Well, now you face the consequences of that decision. The silence that followed was thick, almost physical. I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Each second was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. There's one more thing in the envelope, I said. A letter. It's for your family, with copies of all the evidence. I paused deliberately. I haven't sent it yet, but if you complicate the divorce, if you try to keep anything that isn't yours, letter will land in the hands of your mother, your brothers, and every single person we know. Her eyes widened with pure horror. You wouldn't dare. I've dared plenty, Naomi. I dared to trust you. I dared to love you, even when you stopped loving me. I dared to work like a slave, so you wouldn't want for anything. I took a step toward her. For the first time in the entire conversation, I let her see some of the pain I had been hiding. Don't challenge me now. Don't provoke me to show you what I'm capable of when pushed to the limit. She backed away, stumbling onto the sill. The black envelope fell to the floor, documents and photographs scattering everywhere. Evidence of her betrayal was spread out like the pieces of a puzzle that would never be put back together. Eli? Her voice was a final, desperate attempt, but there was no strength left in it. Goodbye, Naomi. There was no emotion in my farewell, only finality. 5 days, Sunday at 6 in the evening. I want your keys on the kitchen counter. I turned and walked to the door. I didn't look back. Each step felt heavy, as if I were carrying years of grief on my shoulders. But there was also something else, something I didn't expect to feel. Freedom. I walked out of the house and closed the door behind me. The sound of the deadbolt locking was definitive. Final. I walked to my car under the afternoon sun. The shadows were long. The day was dying. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt alive. 6 months ago, my life was different. Not perfect, but stable, predictable. And for a 63-year-old man who has worked all his life, stability is a luxury you don't appreciate until it's gone. I woke up every day at 6 in the morning, always before Naomi. I'd go down to the kitchen and prepare coffee in the Cuisinart drip coffee maker we bought on our trip to Rome 10 years ago. The aroma filled the house. It was my moment of peace before the day began. Naomi would come down around 7. I already had her mug ready, with exactly 2 teaspoons of sugar, just the way she liked it. 32 years of marriage teach you those details, the small gestures that build a shared life. Or so I thought. Morning, she'd say, kissing my cheek before sitting down. Her hair was still messy from sleep, her eyes still drowsy. These were the moments I treasured, the simple moments. We'd have breakfast together. Toast, strawberry jam, orange juice. We talked about trivial things, the weather, the neighbors, plans for the weekend, superficial conversations that I confused with intimacy. At 8, I would leave for work. I've been at the same mid-size accounting firm for 25 years. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills. More than pays them, actually. It allowed me to buy this house, save for retirement, and give Naomi the comfortable life she always wanted. I'd get home around 6 in the evening, sometimes later when things were busy. Naomi was usually in the living room watching television or talking on the phone with her friends. How was your day? She'd ask. Fine, a lot of work, I'd reply, placing my briefcase by the door. We ate dinner together almost every night. I cooked on the weekends, she handled the weeknights. It was an arrangement that worked, or that I believed worked. Friday nights were ours. We'd go to that cozy Italian spot downtown, the one with the red and white checkered tablecloths, and the owner who always remembered us. I'd order pasta. She'd order the fish. We'd share a bottle of wine, talk, and laugh. What did we talk about? Now, trying to remember, I realize I don't know. Empty words, automatic laughs, rehearsed gestures of a marriage that was already dead, but neither of us had noticed. Or maybe only I hadn't noticed. The first signs began about 4 months ago. Small things. So small that I ignored them, rationalized them, and turned them into something normal. Naomi started checking her phone more often during meals, while we watched television, and in bed before we fell asleep. The screen lit up her face in the dark, and she would smile, looking at something she never shared with me. Who is it? I would ask, trying to sound casual. Yvette, she'd say, without looking up. She's telling me about her trip. Yvette, her lifelong friend, her perfect excuse. She started going out more, meetings with friends that ran late, work dinners she had never mentioned before, yoga classes on Tuesday and Thursday nights. "It's good that you have your own activities," I would tell her, because that's what a supportive husband is supposed to say. "It's good for you to get out of the house, you idiot." That's what I was, a supportive idiot. Her dressing style changed, too. More careful, more youthful, I suppose. New blouses I didn't remember seeing before. Different perfume, a more expensive, sophisticated one. "Is that new?" I asked one night, pointing to her red dress. "This? I've had it for months," she replied quickly. Too quickly. But I would have remembered it. I always noticed what she wore. It was one of those details I had learned to observe over decades of being together. The calls changed, too. Before, when her phone rang at home, she would answer it in front of me. Normal conversations in a normal voice. But now she would stand up and go into another room. "I need privacy," she'd say when I looked at her curiously. "It's Crystal. She's going through a rough patch. Crystal, another friend, another excuse." Sex practically disappeared. It wasn't that it was frequent at our age, but it existed. Once a week, maybe twice if it was a good month. But suddenly, nothing. Whole weeks without touching. "I'm tired," she would say, turning her back to me in bed. "I understand," I would reply, because what else could I say? I didn't want to be that kind of man, the one who pressures, the one who demands. So, I fell asleep alone, on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when we had stopped being us. My brother, Marcus, was the first one to say something. He came to visit one Sunday. Naomi had left early. Another one of her meetings with friends. "Where's Naomi?" he asked, sitting in the kitchen while I prepared coffee. "Shopping," I said. Marcus looked at me in a strange way, a look I didn't know how to interpret at the time. Now, I know, it was pity. "Eli," he said after a long silence, "is everything okay between you two?" "Of course. Why do you ask?" He shrugged, but the question hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't dissipate. "Just asking. You seem different, quieter." "I'm fine," I insisted. "Just work, lots of stress." But it wasn't just work, even though I refused to admit it at the time. One Thursday night, about 3 months ago, I drove past the Italian restaurant. Our restaurant. I had left the office early because I had a headache. I thought about getting some takeout, and then I saw her. Naomi was sitting at our table, the one by the window we always reserved on Fridays. But it was Thursday, and she wasn't alone. There was a man across from her. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I was standing on the street, but I saw his hands. I saw how he touched my wife's hands across the table. I saw her smile, that smile that was supposed to be only for me. I stood there like an idiot for a full 5 minutes. People walked past me, traffic kept flowing, the world kept turning, but I was frozen. Eventually, I left. I walked back to my car, drove home, and sat on the dark sofa, waiting. Naomi arrived at 11 o'clock at night. "Where were you?" I asked when she walked in. She jumped. She hadn't expected to find me awake. "With Yvette. I told you this morning." "Yvette," I repeated. "Yes, we went to dinner." "Why?" The lie slipped from her mouth so easily, without hesitation, without visible guilt. "Where did you go?" "That new place downtown, the Japanese one." A lie on top of a lie. I could have confronted her right there. I could have told her I saw her, that I knew she was at our restaurant with another man, but I didn't. Why didn't I? Fear, I suppose. Fear that if I said it out loud, it would become real. Fear of destroying what was left of my life. Fear of being alone at 63. So I swallowed the words, pushing them down until they hurt in my chest, like sharp stones. "That's good," I finally said. "I'm glad you had fun." She kissed my forehead as if everything was fine, as if she hadn't spent the last 4 hours with another man in our spot. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her quiet breathing beside me. How could she sleep so peacefully? How could she lie to my face and then close her eyes without remorse? The next morning, everything returned to normal. Coffee at 6. She came down at 7. We had breakfast together as always, but something had changed in me. I started watching more, noticing things I'd ignored before. Receipts in her purse, faint traces of men's cologne on her clothes, the messages she deleted immediately after reading them. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. I had the password written down somewhere years ago for emergencies. I had never used it, never felt the need, until now. My hands trembled as I unlocked the screen. Part of me hoped not to find anything, that it had all been my imagination, the paranoia of an old jealous man. But there they were, hundreds of messages with a number saved as D. I didn't read them all. I couldn't. The first few lines were enough to feel the floor open up beneath my feet. "Miss your skin. Can't wait to see you Tuesday. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Words that should have been for me, feelings that should have been mine. I closed the phone and put it back exactly where it was. I sat on the edge of the bed and breathed. Just breathed. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just sat there in silence, while steam from the shower seeped out from under the bathroom door. And my marriage crumbled into invisible pieces around me. Naomi came out of the shower 20 minutes later with a towel wrapped around her hair. "Are you okay?" she asked when she saw me. "You look pale." "I'm fine," I lied, because now I could lie too. "Just tired." That night, after she fell asleep, I went down to my home office. I opened my laptop and searched Google for private investigator near me. I found 3 options. I called the first one on the list the next morning from my car in the office parking lot. His name was Jerome Price. Professional voice, serious, non-judgmental. "What do you need, Mr. Hayes?" "I need to know the truth about my wife." Jerome and I met at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood, a place where no one knew me, where no one could see me conspiring against my own wife. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I told Naomi I had a work meeting. Another lie added to the collection we were both building. Jerome was a man in his 40s. Gray suit, direct gaze, notepad in hand. He shook my hand firmly and ordered a black coffee, no sugar. "Mr. Hayes, tell me what's going on." And I told him everything, from the behavioral changes to the phone, from the restaurant to the messages I had seen. My voice broke at times, but I held firm. This was no time for tears. "Do you have any idea who it might be?" Jerome asked, taking notes. "No. I just know he's saved in her phone as D. How long do you suspect this has been going on? The changes started 4 months ago, but..." I stopped, swallowing hard. But the messages I saw seemed to suggest it's been longer. Much longer. Jerome nodded, as if he had heard this story 1,000 times before. He probably had. "What do you need from me specifically?" "Proof. I need to know who he is. I need to know how long this has been going on, and I need to..." I stopped, surprised by what I was about to say. "I need to know if she's been using our money for this." "Understood." I'll need some basic information. Her routine, places she frequents, and any bank account numbers you have access to. I gave him everything. Every detail of Naomi's life I knew. Her yoga schedule, her friends' names, the places she claimed to go. I also gave him access to our joint accounts. I was the primary account holder, so I had the right. How long do you think it will take? I asked. It depends. If she's careless, a few days. If she's careful, maybe a week or two. He paused. Mr. Hayes, I have to ask you something important. What? Are you sure you want to know? Because once you have the proof, you can't unknow it. You can't go back. I looked him in the eye. This man, this stranger, was giving me one last chance to continue living in ignorance, to keep pretending my marriage was fine. I'm sure, I said. I can't live a lie anymore. We agreed on the payment. $3,000 up front. The rest when he had results. It was expensive. But what price is the truth? What price is regaining your dignity? I took the money from my personal account, the one Naomi didn't check, the account where I kept my bonus checks, an emergency fund. This, I decided, definitely qualified as an emergency. The next few days were the strangest of my life. I still went to work, still came home, still had breakfast with Naomi, as if nothing was happening. But now, I knew someone was following her, documenting her every move, every lie. I felt like an actor in my own life, saying the right lines, making the appropriate gestures, but completely empty inside. Are you okay, Eli? Naomi asked one night during dinner. You've been very quiet lately. It's just work, I replied, pushing the food around my plate. A lot of stress. You should take a few days off, rest. The irony was almost funny. She was suggesting I rest while she was probably planning her next rendezvous with him. Maybe, I said. The following Thursday night, 3 days after hiring Jerome, I received a text message. I have something. Can you meet tomorrow? My heart sped up so fast. Only 3 days. And he already had something. Yes. Same place, same time. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake listening to Naomi breathe beside me, wondering what Jerome would show me, wondering if I was prepared to know it. Friday came slowly, like a form of torture. Every hour at the office felt like an eternity. I checked the clock every 5 minutes. My colleagues noticed my distraction, but no one asked. They probably thought it was my age, that I was losing focus. If only they knew. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink. I just held it in my hands, letting the heat warm my palms. Jerome arrived on time, carrying a brown folder under his arm. He sat down across from me without preamble. Mr. Hayes, I found something, and it's not going to be easy to look at. Show me. He opened the folder. The first photo hit me like a punch to the gut. Naomi, my wife, leaving a downtown boutique hotel. She wasn't alone. A man was beside her, maybe 10 years younger than me, tall, well-dressed. His hand was on the small of her back. This was Tuesday, Jerome said, the day you said she had yoga. He flipped to the next photo, the two of them entering a restaurant I didn't know, sitting at a secluded table, leaning toward each other, intimate. And Wednesday? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Wednesday too. More photos, different places, same story. Who is he? His name is Darnell Johnson. He's 47, works in real estate. Jerome paused. And here's where it gets worse, Mr. Hayes. I didn't know how it could be worse, but Jerome pulled more papers from the folder. I checked your bank statements, as you authorized. There are transfers, many transfers, to his account. I looked at the numbers. $500 here, $1,000 there, $2,000. The dates went back almost 2 years. Tally up the total, I said, though I didn't want it to know. $20,000 in the last 24 months. $20,000 of our savings. Of the money I had earned working overtime. Of the fund we had created for our retirement. To travel. To enjoy our last years together. And she had given it to him. Is there more? I asked, unsure if I wanted to know. Messages. I managed to get some. Jerome pulled out more papers, printouts of conversations, not all of them, but enough to understand the situation. I read them. Every word was a nail in my heart. You're the best lover I have ever had. I wish I could leave him, but it's complicated. I feel alive when I'm with you. With him, I feel nothing. I was him. Now, she didn't even use my name. How long, I asked. How long has this been going on? Based on the oldest messages I could get, at least 2 years. Probably longer. 2 years. 730 days of lies, of kissing me in the morning and sleeping with him in the afternoon, of sleeping beside me while dreaming of another man. There's one more thing, Jerome said, his voice softer now. The hotel where they meet, she pays for it with a credit card in her name, but it's linked to your joint account. $200 each time, twice a week on average. I did the math in my head. $200 twice a week for 2 years. More than $40,000 in total between the transfers and the hotels. $40,000 for her betrayal. I stared at the photos without really seeing them. My mind was blank, or maybe too full. I couldn't tell the difference. Mr. Hayes, Jerome's voice brought me back. What do you want to do now? Can you get me copies of all this? I already did. It's all here. He slid the folder toward me. I also included a USB drive with digital copies and a detailed report with dates, places, amounts. Everything you'll need for a divorce proceeding. Divorce. The word sounded strange, final. How much do I owe you? The rest of the agreed-upon payment. $2,000 more. I took out my checkbook. My hands were shaking as I wrote. Jerome noticed, but didn't say anything. A piece of advice, Mr. Hayes, he said as he pocketed the check. Don't confront her yet, not with anger. Find a lawyer first. Protect your assets, your accounts. Make sure she can't take any more than she already has. Do you know a good lawyer? Jerome pulled a business card from his wallet. This man is excellent. Tell him I referred you. I took the card. Julian Carter, family law attorney. Thank you, I said, for everything. It's my job. He stood up to leave, then paused. One more thing. I've seen many cases like this, and I always tell my clients the same thing. Vengeance won't bring you peace, but justice will. Do this legally and correctly, and you'll walk away with your dignity intact. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I had any dignity left to save. After Jerome left, I stayed seated in that coffee shop for another hour. The folder was in front of me, 52 photos, 23 pages of bank statements, 14 pages of printed messages, the evidence that my marriage was a lie. Finally, I forced myself to stand up. I put the folder in my briefcase. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and closed my eyes. Then and only then did I allow the tears to come. I cried for the man I was, for the marriage I thought I had, for the 32 years that now felt like a cruel joke. I cried until there was nothing left to cry. Then I dried my face, started the engine, and drove home. Naomi was in the living room watching television when I walked in. "Hi, honey," she said without turning around. "How was your day?" "Fine," I replied, putting my briefcase by the door. The folder inside contained her conviction, and she had no idea. And yours? Quiet. I was with Crystal all afternoon. Another lie. Jerome had sent me photos of her checking into the hotel at 3 in the afternoon. That's great, I said. I sat next to her on the sofa. She rested her head on my shoulder like she used to. The gesture that once filled me with warmth now only turned my stomach. I love you, she said. And for the last time, I lied too. I love you too. On Monday morning, I called attorney Julian Carter, the name on the card Jerome had given me. His secretary gave me an appointment for that same day at 4 in the afternoon. I told Naomi I had an important meeting at work. She barely looked up from her phone. Okay, I'll be late tonight too. I'm having dinner with Yvette. Yvette. The name she used when she went to see Darnell. She didn't even bother to be creative with her lies anymore. Have fun, I said, kissing her forehead. Julian Carter's office was downtown, in an old but well-maintained building. I took the stairs up to the 3rd floor. I needed time to think, to prepare. The reception area was simple: brown leather furniture, landscape paintings on the walls. A woman in her 50s greeted me with a professional smile. Mr. Carter is waiting for you. But Julian Carter was younger than I expected, maybe 45, dark hair, with some gray, impeccable suit. He greeted me with a firm handshake and invited me to sit down. Jerome called me, he said, getting straight to the point. He told me about your situation in general terms, but I need to hear it from you. I placed the folder on his desk. My wife has been cheating on me for at least 2 years. She has transferred $20,000 from our accounts to her lover and spent another $20,000 on hotels. All of this without my knowledge. Julian opened the folder and began reviewing it. His expression didn't change, but I watched his eyes move quickly from one page to the next. How long have you been married? 32 years. Do you have children? No, we were never able to. That was another old wound. Years of trying, doctors, broken hopes. Eventually we gave up. We decided we would be enough for each other. How wrong I was. Shared assets? The house is in my name. I bought it before we were married and paid the mortgage off completely. We have 2 cars, both in my name, too. Joint bank accounts, but I am the primary account holder. The money comes mainly from my salary. Julian kept taking notes. Does she work? She worked during the first few years of our marriage, but she quit about 15 years ago. She said she wanted to focus on the house, on us. The irony burned my throat. I agreed. I wanted her to be happy. Do you have any kind of prenuptial agreement? No. When we got married, neither of us had anything. We built everything together. I paused. Or so I thought. Julian put down his pen and looked straight at me. Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be honest with you. This case is relatively straightforward from a legal standpoint. You have solid evidence of infidelity and misuse of funds. The house is in your name, the cars too. She doesn't work and hasn't contributed financially in 15 years. What does that mean? It means that in a divorce, you have the advantage, especially with this evidence. A judge would view the improper use of shared funds as a significant factor. He leaned back in his chair. But I need to ask you an important question. What is it that you want? I want the divorce. I want her out of my house, and I want her not to take anything that doesn't belong to her. Vengeance? The question took me by surprise. No, not vengeance. Justice. I thought of Jerome's words. I want to take back my life, my peace, my dignity. Julian nodded as if that were the correct answer. Then here's what we'll do. First, we'll prepare the divorce documents. I'll include all of this proof as evidence of adultery and malversation. Second, I recommend you close the joint accounts immediately and open new accounts only in your name. Can I do that? You are the primary account holder. You have every right. In fact, you should have done it yesterday. He leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, she already took $40,000. Don't let her take any more. He was right. Of course, he was right. How long will it take to prepare the documents? A week, maybe less if we hurry. In the meantime, I suggest you act normal. Don't confront her. Don't give her any sign that you know anything. The element of surprise is your best ally. I've been pretending for weeks already. One more won't make a difference. Good. I also recommend you change the locks on your house, but do that only after she signs the papers, or after you formally serve her. And if she refuses to sign, then we'll go to court. But with this evidence, I assure you she won't want to. A trial would make all of this public. Her family would find out, her friends. Everyone would see what she did. Julian closed the folder. Most people in her situation prefer to sign and keep things private. We spent the next hour discussing details, legal fees, timelines, strategies. Julian was meticulous, professional. He made me feel like I finally had control over something. When I left his office, it was already night. The sky was dark, but I felt strangely light. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something, that I wasn't just a passive victim of Naomi's decisions. I drove to the bank before it closed. I spoke to the manager, a man who had known me for years. I need to close the joint accounts and open new ones, only in my name. He looked at me with surprise, but was professional enough not to ask. Of course, Mr. Hayes, all the accounts. Yes, all of them. It took an hour to complete the paperwork. When I finished, all the money left in our joint accounts was now in new accounts, only in my name. New cards, new access. Naomi could no longer touch a single dime without my authorization. I got home after 8. Naomi still wasn't back. She was probably still at her dinner with Yvette. I poured myself a whiskey. I'm not a drinker, but that night I needed something to calm my nerves. I sat in my favorite armchair and waited. She arrived at 10:30. Fresh perfume, retouched makeup, a relaxed smile. "Sorry I'm late," she said, taking off her shoes. "Dinner ran long." "No problem," I replied. "Did you have fun?" "Yes. Yvette is thinking about remodeling her kitchen. She asked me for advice." Every lie slipped so easily from her mouth, like breathing. "That's good," I said, taking another sip of whiskey. She looked at me curiously. "Are you drinking? You almost never drink." "Tough day at work. Do you want to talk about it?" No, I didn't want to talk about anything with her anymore. I'm fine, just tired. That night, lying in bed with Naomi asleep beside me, I thought about the coming days. Julian would prepare the papers. I would continue to pretend. And when everything was ready, when I had everything in order, then I would act. Not with anger, not with shouting, but with the cold precision of a man who had finally taken control of his own life. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in weeks I slept soundly, because I knew the end was near. The next few days passed in a strange calm. I lived 2 simultaneous lives. In one, I was the devoted husband, the man who made coffee in the mornings and asked about his wife's day. In the other, I was a cold strategist, meticulously planning every step of my liberation. Julian called me on Wednesday. The documents are ready. You can come pick them up. I went to his office during my lunch hour. He handed me a thick, sealed envelope. Everything is here. The divorce papers, the inventory of assets, the organized evidence. It also includes a formal letter notifying the infidelity and the improper use of funds. He paused. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Then my advice is this. Wait for the right moment. A moment where she can't escape the conversation, where she has to face what she did. I already know when that will be. That night, during dinner, Naomi dropped the news casually. By the way, I'm going away for a few days next week. I looked up from my plate. Where to? Crystal wants me to go with her to visit her sister in Palm Beach, Florida. It'll only be 5 or 6 days. I need a break, a change of scenery. She smiled as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Crystal. Another convenient lie. When are you leaving? Monday. I'll be back Saturday or Sunday. Monday, in 4 days. Okay, I said, returning to my food. Enjoy yourself. She seemed surprised by how easily I accepted it. You're not bothered? Why would I be bothered? It's good for you to get out. Relax. The words came out automatically, empty. You deserve it. And it was true. She deserved something, just not a relaxing trip. That night, after Naomi fell asleep, I went down to my office. I took out the envelope Julian had given me and read the whole thing. Every page, every line, every piece of evidence of her betrayal documented on official paper. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. Everything I needed to do while she was away. Change the locks, remove her name from the house utilities, pack her personal belongings into boxes, prepare everything for when she returned. But there was one more thing I needed to know. Something that was eating away at me. I opened my email and wrote to Jerome. I need one last favor. My wife says she's going on a trip Monday. I need to know if she's really going with her friend or if it's another lie. His answer came in less than an hour. Send me the details. I'll find out. The weekend passed slowly. Naomi was busy packing, excited about her trip. I watched her from a distance, wondering how she could lie so easily, how she could kiss me on the cheek while packing new lingerie in her suitcase. On Sunday night, Jerome sent me a confirmed message. No reservation in Crystal's name at any hotel in Palm Beach. But I found a reservation for 2 people at a resort near the beach under the name Darnell Johnson. There it was, the definitive truth. She wasn't going to visit a friend. She was going to spend a week with him, with my money, at a resort that probably cost hundreds of dollars a night. I replied to Jerome, "Thank you. I have everything I need." On Monday morning, Naomi kissed me goodbye. "I'm going to miss you," she lied. "I'll miss you too," I lied back. I watched her get into a tea with her pink suitcase, the same suitcase I had given her for our anniversary 3 years ago. The irony was cruel. When the taxi disappeared around the corner, I released the breath I didn't know I was holding. Now my week began. The first thing was to call a locksmith. He arrived in an hour and changed all the locks on the house: front door, back door, garage. 3 new locks with new keys. Problems with the wife? The locksmith asked while he worked. Something like that. I've seen this before. Good luck, sir. Then I called the electric, water, and gas companies. I removed Naomi's name from all the accounts. Everything was now solely in my name. I hired 2 men to help me pack Naomi's things: her clothes, her shoes, her books, her jewelry, everything into labeled, organized boxes. Not with cruelty, but with efficiency. Leave only the essentials, I told them, and only the things that are clearly hers. It took 3 days to complete everything. The house felt different without her things. Emptier, yes, but also cleaner, as if I were stripping away a layer of dirt that had been there for years. On Thursday afternoon, Julian came to the house. I want you to be a witness, I told him. When she returns, I want you to be here. Of course, when is she coming back? Sunday, probably in the late afternoon. I'll be here. And on Friday, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the barber, and I got a haircut. Had my beard trimmed. I bought a new shirt. White. Simple. But elegant. If I was going to close this chapter of my life, I would do it looking like the man I deserved to be. On Saturday, I cleaned the entire house. I vacuumed, mopped the floors, organized every corner. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. That night, I took out the black envelope, the one containing all the documents, all the evidence, everything I needed to end this. I left it on the dining room credenza, waiting. I also prepared another envelope. This one was smaller, white. It contained copies of all the evidence, and a letter I had written to Naomi's family, her mother, her 2 brothers, her close cousins. In the letter, I explained everything. The infidelity, the stolen money, the lies. Not with cruelty, but with facts, numbers, dates, irrefutable evidence. If she signs the papers without complications, Julian had told me, you never send this letter. But if she fights, if she tries to keep anything that doesn't belong to her, then everyone will know exactly who she is. It was my ace up the sleeve, my guarantee that she couldn't destroy me any further than she already had. On Sunday morning, I woke up early. The sun was just rising, painting the sky golden. I made my coffee and sat in the kitchen, waiting. Julian would arrive at 2 in the afternoon. Naomi, according to her text message, would arrive around 5. I showered, put on my new white shirt, and looked at myself in the mirror. The man looking back was different from the one a month ago. Thinner, perhaps more tired, but also stronger. I had spent 32 years building a life with a woman who didn't love me. 32 years being loyal to someone who was betraying me. But that ended today. At 2 o'clock sharp, Julian knocked on the door. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." We sat in the living room. Me in my favorite armchair. Julian on the sofa, the black envelope on the coffee table between us. And we waited. At 5:15, I heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. A door closing, footsteps approaching, the sound of a key trying to enter the lock. Silence. Another attempt. Then knocking on the door. "Eli? Eli, are you there? My key isn't working." I slowly got up and walked to the door. This was the moment everything changed. I opened the door. Naomi was standing there with her pink suitcase, her face ready to smile, expecting me to ask how her trip had been. But I didn't say anything. I just stepped back and let her walk in. "Why isn't my key working?" she asked, confused. "Come in," I said simply. "We have to talk." Naomi walked in, dragging her suitcase, still with that look of confusion, mixed with irritation. Her eyes swept across the room and stopped on Julian, who was standing by the sofa in his impeccable suit with his leather briefcase. "Who is he?" she asked, looking at me. "He's Julian Carter, my attorney." The word attorney dropped like a bomb in the room. I watched her face change from confusion to alarm in a matter of seconds. "Your attorney? What is going on here, Eli?" I didn't answer. I just walked to the coffee table and picked up the black envelope. That envelope that had been waiting for this moment for days, that had held her entire conviction with such care. Sit down, Naomi. I'm not sitting down until you tell me what... Sit down. My voice was firmer. I didn't have to shout this time. The tone was enough. She slowly sat down on the edge of the sofa, her suitcase forgotten by the door. Her hands clutched her purse as if it were a life raft. I stood in front of her. Julian remained silent, watching, a professional witness to this moment that had been weeks in the making. How was your trip? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. Fine, Eli, please. What is happening? Palm Beach was beautiful, I hear. Crystal enjoyed visiting her sister? Naomi blinked, confused by the question. Yes. It was nice. That's good. Because, I had an interesting week, too. Very productive, in fact. She looked at me, not understanding where this was going. I changed the locks on the house. That's why your key doesn't work. I paused. I also closed all our joint bank accounts and opened new ones only in my name. I removed your name from all the utilities. Electricity, water, gas, internet. I watched the color begin to drain from her face. You can't do that. I already did. I also packed all your things. They're in the garage in labeled boxes. 27 ounces in total. I was very careful not to include anything that is mine. Eli, what the hell? But that's not all. I held out the black envelope. This is for you. She looked at the envelope like a poisonous snake. What is it? Open it. Her hands trembled as she took the envelope. She opened it slowly, as if part of her already knew what she would find inside. The first photo slid out. Her and Darnell leaving the hotel. Her eyes widened. Where did you get this? There's more. Keep looking. She pulled out another photo and another. Each one showed a different moment, a different day, a different lie. Her hands were shaking so much that the photos almost fell out. Eli, I can explain. No. I held up a hand. I don't want your explanations. I don't care about your lies anymore. She kept pulling documents from the envelope. The bank statements with the transfers marked in red. The hotel receipts. The printed messages with her words of love for another man. His name is Darnell Johnson, I said. My voice was still calm. He's 47. He works in real estate, and for the past 2 years, you've been giving him our money. $20,000 in direct transfers, another $20,000 on hotels where you met, $40,000 in total. Naomi was sobbing now. The photos scattered in her lap. Eli, please. And this week. This week you said you were going with Crystal to visit her sister? Do you know where you really were? I leaned in toward her. At a resort in Palm Beach with him. A luxury suite that costs $300 a night. 7 nights, $2,100, which you also planned to pay for with our money. A bitter smile crossed my face. I guess he had to pay this time. How inconvenient for you. Julian cleared his throat. It was his cue, the moment to move to the legal part. Mrs. Hayes, he said, his voice professional and cold. In that envelope, you will also find divorce documents. Your husband is petitioning for the dissolution of the marriage based on proven adultery and misuse of shared funds. Naomi looked at him, as if only just realizing he was there. You will also find, Julian continued, a complete inventory of all marital assets. The house is in Mr. Hayes's name and was paid for completely by him. The 2 vehicles are also in his name, the bank accounts, which you no longer have access to. You can't take everything from me. We are not taking anything that is yours, Mrs. Hayes. We are simply protecting what belongs to my client. Julian pulled a document from his briefcase. You have two options. You can sign these documents now, accepting the terms of the divorce, which are very generous considering the circumstances. Generous? Naomi almost shouted the word. Generous, Julian repeated firmly. Your husband is not seeking restitution of the $40,000 you spent. He is not filing criminal charges for fraud, though he would have a legal basis to do so. He simply wants the divorce and for you to leave. And if I don't sign? Julian exchanged a look with me. I nodded. It was time to show the other card. If you don't sign, I said, walking to the credenza and taking out the white envelope, then I hold this up. This envelope contains copies of all the evidence and a letter explaining in detail what you did. It is addressed to your mother, your brothers, your cousins, your friends, every person we know. Horror took over her face. You wouldn't dare. I've dared plenty, Naomi. I dared to trust you for 32 years. I dared to work 12 hours a day to give you the life you wanted. I dared to love you, even when you clearly didn't love me anymore. I took a step toward her. Don't challenge me now. Don't push me. She broke down. Sobs shook her entire body. The makeup ran down her cheeks, forming black lines. She looked small, broken, nothing like the confident woman who had walked through that door 15 minutes ago. How could you do this? She whispered. 32 years together. I should be asking you that same question, I said. 32 years, Naomi. 32 years where I gave you everything. My time, my money, my loyalty, my love. And you? You gave me lies. It was a mistake. I can change. It's not a mistake that lasts 2 years. It's not a mistake that costs $40,000. It's not a mistake when you lied to my face every day, when you kissed me with the same lips that kissed him. My voice wavered slightly, but I recovered. That's not a mistake, Naomi. That's a choice. Your choice. The silence that followed was dense, heavy as lead. Julian spoke again. Mrs. Hayes, I need an answer. Will you sign the documents? Naomi looked at the photos in her lap, then at the white envelope in my hands, then at me one last time. Her eyes searched for some sign that this was a nightmare, that I would change my mind. She wouldn't find it. Yes, she whispered. I'll sign. What do I get? A swift and private dissolution of the marriage, Julian replied. No public scandal, no family or friends finding out the details. And Mr. Hayes will not seek restitution of the money spent. And the house? The house belongs to Mr. Hayes. It always has. The cars, too. So I leave with nothing? There was rage in her voice now, mixed with desperation. You leave with your dignity intact, I said. If you still have any of that left. You can take everything I packed, your clothes, your jewelry, your personal belongings, and you leave without the whole world knowing what you did. I looked her directly in the eye. That is your option, Naomi. Sign and keep this private. Or don't sign, and let everyone know exactly who you are. She sat there, trembling, crying on destroyed. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel sorry for her. I only felt relief that this was ending. Naomi sat on that sofa for what felt like an eternity. Her hands trembled, holding the documents. Tears fell onto the photo, staining the evidence of her betrayal. Julian took a pen from his briefcase and placed it on the coffee table. The sound of the metal against the wood echoed in the silence like a gunshot. I need your decision, Mrs. Hayes. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. I need to be at another meeting by 7. I require your decision now. Naomi looked at the pen on the table, then at the documents, then at me one last time. You're really going to do this? She asked, her voice broken. After everything we shared? You already did it, Naomi. And 2 years ago, when you decided he was more important than me, when you decided our marriage was worth less than stolen moments in cheap hotels. I leaned forward. I'm just signing the death certificate for something you already killed. I loved you. No, my voice cut the air like a knife. Don't say that. Don't dare say that now. Love doesn't lie for 2 years. Love doesn't steal $40,000. Love doesn't look its partner in the eye every morning while planning to be with another. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, shadows lengthening on the street. Neighbors were returning to their homes after a typical Sunday. For them, it was just another day. For me, it was the day I took back my life. You have 2 options, I said without turning around. Sign now, and this ends quietly. Or don't sign, and tomorrow morning this envelope lands in your mother's hands. I heard a sob behind me. My mother. She has a weak heart. This could kill her. You should have thought about that before, I said, turning back toward her. You should have thought about a lot of things before, but you didn't. You only thought about yourself, what you wanted, what made you feel good. So Julian cleared his throat again. Mrs. Hayes, I need your decision now. Naomi looked at the pen on the table, then the documents, then at me one last time. Is there no other way? Can't we try? No. The word came out firm, final, with no room for negotiation. She lowered her head, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Slowly, with trembling hands, she picked up the pen. Where do I sign? Julian showed her the pages marked with small red X's. There were 7 places that needed her signature. I watched her as she signed. Each stroke of the pen was like closing a door. Every signature was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. When she finished, she dropped the pen as if it weighed 100 pounds. It's done, she whispered. Julian collected the documents with professional efficiency. He quickly reviewed them, verifying each signature. Everything is in order. I will file these tomorrow in court. The divorce will be official in 90 days. 90 days. 3 months for 32 years to officially become nothing. Mrs. Hayes, Julian continued, you have until next Sunday to retrieve your belongings from this property. After that date, Mr. Hayes has the legal right to dispose of anything left behind. I also remind you that you no longer have access to any bank accounts, credit cards, or property in Mr. Hayes's name. Any attempt to access these resources will be considered theft, and legal action will be taken. I understand, she muttered. Julian looked at me, waiting for my signal. I nodded. His job here was finished. Then, if you'll excuse me, he stood up and took his briefcase. He extended his hand to me. Mr. Hayes, I'll call you tomorrow after filing the documents. Thank you, Julian. I walked him to the door. When he left, I turned back to Naomi. She was still sitting on the sofa, surrounded by photographs of her betrayal, looking like a broken version of the woman I married 3 decades ago. You need to go, I said simply. Now, tonight. Now, but I have nowhere to go. You should call Darnell. I'm sure he can help you. The coldness in my voice surprised even me. After all, he's why you're in this situation. She stood up with difficulty, as if her legs could barely support her. Can I at least take some clothes? Your things are packed in the garage. You can take a few boxes now. The rest you have to collect during the week. She headed toward the garage with slow, dragging steps. I stayed in the living room, not following her. I heard the sound of boxes moving, of adhesive tape tearing. 15 minutes later, she returned, dragging 2 large boxes. Her pink suitcase was still by the door. That suitcase full of clothes she had packed for her week with him. "I need to call a cab," she said without looking at me. "Go ahead." She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, dialed a number. Her voice was barely a whisper when she gave the address. 10 minutes, she said after hanging up. We stood there in uncomfortable silence, 2 strangers who had once shared a life, now with nothing to say to each other. She picked up the photos from the baum, trying to put them back in the envelope. "Leave those," I said. "It doesn't matter anymore, Eli." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I really am." I wanted to tell her that I didn't care about her apology, that it was too little, too late, that her words couldn't undo 2 years of lies and betrayal. But I didn't say anything, because giving her an answer, any answer, meant I still cared enough to talk, and I didn't care anymore. The sound of a car horn outside broke the silence. "Your cab," I said. Naomi took her suitcase with one hand and began to drag one of the boxes toward the door. She struggled with the weight, but I offered no help. Those days were over. She managed to get the first box out, then returned for the second. At the door, she stopped and looked at me one last time. "I hope you can forgive me someday." "Don't hope for anything from me, Naomi. You don't have that right anymore." Her eyes filled with tears again, but they didn't fall. She had no more left. She walked out, closing the door behind her. I walked to the window and watched as the cab driver helped her put the boxes in the trunk, as she got into the back seat, as the cab drove away down the street, taking 32 years of my life away in 2 cardboard boxes. When the cab disappeared from my sight, I let out a sigh I didn't know I was holding. I turned and looked at the house, my house, now empty of her things, but also empty of her lies. The photos were still scattered on the sofa. I picked them up one by one and put them back in the black envelope. Then I walked to the fireplace. We hadn't used it in years, but it still worked. I lit a match. I watched as the flames consumed the envelope, the photos, the documents, as years of betrayal turned to ash. I didn't need that proof anymore. She had signed. Everything was finished. When the fire died down, I poured myself another whiskey, the second in my life, in the same week. I sat in my favorite armchair and drank slowly, savoring the burn in my throat. Outside, the night had completely fallen. The house was silent. A different silence than before. It wasn't the awkward silence of unspoken secrets. It was the silence of peace. For the first time in 2 years, I was alone in my own house, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt free. The days following that night passed in a strange stillness. The house felt different, quieter, yes, but not in an oppressive way. It was the silence of a space that could finally breathe. Julian called me Monday morning. "The documents have been filed. Everything is in order. The judge scheduled the final hearing for 87 days from now, but it's just a formality. With her signature on the papers, the divorce is virtually finalized." "Thank you, Julian." "How are you doing, Mr. Hayes?" It was a simple question, but no one had truly asked me. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "Different, but better." "That's good. And remember, if she tries to contact you or cause trouble, call me immediately." But Naomi didn't call. She didn't come to collect the rest of her things that week, as she was supposed to. There were no messages, no pleas, nothing. It was as if she had disappeared from my life, as completely as she had disappeared that week at the resort with Darnell. On Wednesday, My brother Marcus came to visit. I hadn't called him, but I suppose news travels fast in small families. I heard what happened, he said, sitting in the kitchen while I made coffee. Who told you? Naomi called Mom, crying, saying you threw her out for no reason. Of course she did. Of course she painted herself as the victim. And what did you tell Mom? Marcus took the cup of coffee I offered him. The truth. That I had seen you acting differently months ago. That I suspected something wasn't right. Mom is on your side, in case you were wondering. She says if you had enough proof to do this, then you did the right thing. I had proof, I simply said. Do you want to talk about it? No. Marcus nodded, understanding. We sat in silence for a while, drinking coffee, as we had done 1,000 times in our lives. How do you really feel? He finally asked. I thought about the question. How did I feel? Relieved, I said honestly. Sad, but relieved. Like when you take off a shoe that's been hurting your foot all day. It hurts, but the relief of taking it off is greater than the pain. That's a good comparison. 32 years, Marcus. 32 years with someone who turned out to be a complete stranger. Not the whole life was a lie, my brother said. The first few years were real. What you had at the beginning was real. Was it? I leaned back in my chair. Or was I just too blind to see the signs from the start? Don't torture yourself with that. You trusted your wife. That's not being blind. That's being human. Maybe he was right, but it still hurt. The neighbors started noticing Naomi wasn't around. Mrs. Thompson next door was the first to ask. Is Naomi traveling? She asked one afternoon, while watering her plants. Naomi left, I replied simply. She left? Where to? I don't know, and I don't care. I saw understanding appear in her eyes. News of a divorce in a quiet neighborhood travels faster than wildfire. By Friday, everyone knew. Some neighbors avoided me, uncomfortable with the situation. Others offered compassionate smiles when they saw me, and no one asked directly what had happened. But everyone speculated. I let them speculate. The truth was mine, and I didn't have to share it with anyone. On Saturday morning, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me do it. Mr. Hayes? It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. Yes, my name is Yvette. I'm Naomi's friend. Yvette. The name Naomi used constantly as a cover. What do you need? I need you to know something. Naomi used me. She used me as an excuse 4 months. I didn't know what was going on. I swear. I thought she was really with me when she said she was. Why are you calling me to tell me this? There was silence. Because she came to my place. She's staying with me temporarily. And she's telling everyone that you're a monster. That you threw her out for no reason. That you're leaving her with nothing after 30 years. I found some messages on her phone when she left it unlocked. I saw the things she said about you, the lies, and it doesn't seem fair. I remained silent for a moment. Thank you for calling it, Yvette, but you don't have to worry. I know the truth. That's enough. You're not going to defend yourself? You're not going to tell people what she did? I don't need the world to know my truth to live with it, I said. But I appreciate the call, and I'm sorry you were dragged into this. After hanging up, I sat in silence, thinking about that conversation. Naomi was out there painting me as the villain, telling people I was cruel, that I had abandoned her without cause. Part of me wanted to shout the truth from the rooftops, show everyone the photos, the messages, the proof of her betrayal. But the wiser part of me knew it didn't matter. The people who really knew me knew I wouldn't do something like that without a reason. And the people who didn't know me, well, their opinions weren't worth my peace. On Sunday afternoon, exactly 1 week after Naomi left, I sat in the backyard with a coffee. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves on the trees. I thought of all the Sundays I had spent here with Naomi, breakfasts on the patio, conversations about nothing and everything, plans for a future that would never materialize. I missed her. I missed the idea of her. The woman I thought she was, the partner I thought I had, but the real woman, the one who lied to me for years? No, I didn't miss her. My phone rang. It was Jerome, the investigator. "Mr. Hayes, I just called to see how you were doing. I heard the papers were signed." "They were." "How do you feel?" Like I'd been carrying a huge stone on my back and finally let it go. Jerome laughed. "That's a good sign. Listen, there's something you should know. Darnell Johnson, the man your wife was with, apparently he broke up with her. A friend of mine who works in the same field told me Darnell confessed he was only with her because she was giving him money. When he found out you had closed the accounts, he ended the relationship immediately." I should have felt justified, vindicated, but I only felt pity for Naomi, who had destroyed her marriage for a man who only wanted her for money. "Thanks for telling me, Jerome. I just thought you should know. Take care, Mr. Hayes." After hanging up, I kept staring at the garden. Naomi had lost everything. Her marriage, her home, her lover, probably the respect of many people who knew her. I had lost my wife, but I had gained something more important. I had gained my dignity, I had gained my truth, and I had gained the opportunity to start over. Without lies, without betrayal, without carrying the weight of someone else's decisions. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly, without nightmares, without waking up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, just peace. Justice, I discovered, doesn't always come with fireworks and dramatic vengeance. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the form of signed papers and closed accounts. Sometimes it comes in the form of being able to sleep peacefully, knowing you did the right thing, and that was enough. 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning, I received a call from Julian. "The divorce is official. It's been signed by the judge. Legally, you are a free man, Mr. Hayes. Free." The word echoed in my mind in a strange way. After 32 years, I was just me again, just Eli. "Thank you, Julian, for everything. It was my pleasure to help you. And remember, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call." I hung up the phone and sat in my home office, looking out the window. The world kept turning. People kept going to work, living their lives, chasing their dreams. And I was starting over at 63. It wasn't how I had imagined it. When I was young and married Naomi, I thought we would grow old together, have grandchildren visit us on Sundays, and walk hand in hand in our golden years. Life had other plans, but I discovered something in those 3 months of solitude. I discovered that being alone is not the same as being lonely. I started doing things I had forgotten I enjoyed. I got back into reading, something I had stopped doing because Naomi always wanted to watch television. I bought a book on Roman history, which had always interested me, and devoured it in a week. I started cooking for real, not just heating up food or making basic things, but experimenting with new recipes. One Saturday, I made an ossobuco that turned out better than I expected. I sat alone to eat it and enjoyed every bite without having to hear complaints that it had too much garlic or too little salt. My brother Marcus came to visit every week. Sometimes he brought his wife Brenda. It was good to have company, but it was also good when they left, and I could return to my quiet life. "You look different," Marcus told me one afternoon. "Lighter." "I feel different. Have you thought about dating anyone else? Meeting some women?" The question made me laugh. "Marcus, I'm 63. I'm not looking for romance. I'm looking for peace. Peace is good, but company is too. Maybe someday, but right now, I just need this. I need to be with myself." And it was true. After decades of living for someone else, of adjusting my life to Naomi's wants and needs, I needed to remember who I was alone. One Thursday afternoon, 2 months after the official divorce, I was at the grocery store when I saw her. Naomi was in the cereal aisle, looking thinner than I remembered. Her hair was neat. She was wearing simple clothes, nothing like the expensive outfits she used to wear. Our eyes met for a second. I watched her face change, saw her consider approaching, but something in my expression must have stopped her. She looked away and quickly moved down another aisle. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction in seeing her like that. Just nothing. And that nothing was liberating, because it meant she had ceased to matter, that she no longer occupied space in my heart or my mind. She was simply someone I used to know. I finished my shopping and went home. I made dinner, a simple baked chicken with vegetables. I put on some smooth jazz music I had recently discovered. I ate on the back patio as the sun set. The sky was painted in oranges and pinks, a spectacle that had always been there, but which I rarely stopped to appreciate. I thought about everything that had happened, how drastically my life had changed in a matter of months, how the man I was 6 months ago probably wouldn't recognize the man I was now. I had learned things about myself in these months. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could make difficult decisions when necessary, that I could be alone without feeling empty. I also learned about forgiveness. Not forgiveness toward Naomi. I wasn't sure I could ever give that, but forgiveness toward myself for not seeing the signs sooner, for allowing myself to be treated that way for so long, for trusting when I should have questioned. I forgave myself for being human, for loving someone who didn't love me back, for believing in a marriage that was already dead. The forgiveness didn't come in one dramatic moment. It came quietly, in small waves over months. In the mornings, when I woke up and no longer felt that weight in my chest. In the nights, when I fell asleep without reproaching myself for my blindness. One Saturday morning, 6 months after that Sunday, when everything changed, I woke up early. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in golden tones. I made my coffee in the Cuisinart drip coffee maker. The aroma filled the kitchen just as it always had, but now it was only for me, and that was fine. I sat on the patio with my warm mug in my hands. The birds began their morning song. The fresh morning air brushed against my face. I thought of the man I had been, the one who woke up every day to make coffee for a woman who was betraying him, the one who worked overtime to maintain a comfortable life that she used to finance her infidelity, the one who smiled and nodded while his marriage secretly fell apart. That man no longer existed. In his place was someone new, or perhaps someone old, who had been rediscovered, a man who knew his worth, who understood that loyalty wasn't weakness, and that betrayed trust wasn't his fault. A man who had learned that sometimes the greatest power isn't in vengeance, but in simply letting go. Because that was what I had finally done. I had let go, not only of Naomi, but of the anger, the resentment, the bitterness that threatened to consume me. I had chosen peace over pain, dignity over revenge, my future over my past. And in that choice, I had found something I didn't expect to find. Freedom. Not the freedom of being single, but the freedom of being complete by myself, of not needing someone else to feel valuable, of knowing I could be alone and be okay. I took a sip of coffee and watched the sun slowly climb over the horizon. A new day was beginning, like all the days before this one, like all the days that would come after. But this day was mine, completely mine, without lies, without betrayal, without carrying the weight of someone else's decisions. And for the first time in years, perhaps decades, I felt completely at peace. I didn't know what the future held, if I would fall in love again someday, or if I would spend the rest of my life alone, if Naomi would find her way, or continue to be lost in her own lies. But that no longer mattered to me, because I had learned the most important lesson of all. The real power isn't in getting revenge on the one who hurt you. It's in healing enough that that person no longer has power over you. It's in getting up every morning and choosing your own peace over their chaos. It's in looking in the mirror and recognizing the man you see, respecting him, valuing him. I finished my coffee as the sun completed its ascent. The shadows of the night disappeared, replaced by the daylight. I stood up, stretched my 63-year-old body, and smiled. Because if I had learned anything from all this, it was simple. Sometimes the most valuable things we lose in life aren't the things we wanted to keep. Sometimes losing is the only way to win. And I had won. I had won my life back, and I discovered that was worth more than any marriage built on lies. I walked back into the house, my house, and gently closed the door behind me. Did you like my story? If you listened till the end, drop a 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got lots of other life stories like this on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one. With love.